Chapter 1 The Cold Silence. The village of Kwamthombo had forgotten the warmth. For 3 cycles of the moon, a grey blanket had clung to the sky, stealing the sun's spirit and replacing it with a biting, relentless cold. It was an unnatural chill that sank into the mud walls of the Imizi homesteads and curdled the blood in the veins of the Zulu people. The worst casualty of this endless winter was the sacred communal fire, which had died months ago after a fierce storm. Without the ancestral flame, the people of Kwamthombo ate cold, miserable food and shivered through the long nights, whispering fearsome legends about the cold bringer. Nomusa, the main source of those legends, moved like a ghost through the village lanes. She was the one blamed, the one whose very name carried a superstitious thread. She had been born during a lightning storm that struck the great fig tree, and the village Sangoma, traditional healer, Makais, declared she carried the ill luck of the extinguished fire. No one would meet her eyes, and mothers pulled their children away from her path. Nomusa was often seen staring at the cold, dark hearth in the center of the kraal enclosure, remembering the days when its smoky warmth had meant security, cooked meals, and the easy laughter of her clan. Her goal was clear, yet seemingly impossible. She needed to bring fire back, not just for warmth, but to redeem her very existence in Kwamthombo. She knew the traditional friction method had failed every warrior. Her solution would have to be something else entirely. Chapter 2 The Shadow of Makais. The village was ruled by 2 men, the strong, troubled chief Zwelebonzi and the smooth, powerful Sangoma, Makais. The chief was burdened by his people's suffering, but Makais held the true authority, for he claimed to speak the will of the ancestors. It was Makais who had publicly and loudly pronounced the curse on Nomusa. She is the child of the sky fire that consumes, Makais had announced, his voice ringing with theatrical dread, and her presence ensures the earth fire shall never live again. This proclamation cemented Nomusa's isolation and justified Makais's own repeated, failed attempts to rekindle the flame through elaborate, smoke-filled rituals. Makais knew his power depended on the perpetuation of the curse, so he constantly monitored Nomusa. He noticed her gaze often drifting toward the looming, jagged peak of Intoba Yomlilo, mountain of fire, a place forbidden to all, especially to Nomusa. Legend said the mountain had been struck by 1,000 lightning bolts and was haunted by vengeful spirits. The Sangoma had ensured everyone believed that the one place to find a natural flame was the one place Nomusa was forbidden to step. Yet, Nomusa's Gogo, grandmother, before passing, had planted a seed of doubt in the young girl's mind. The fire, her Gogo had whispered, was lost to a man's greed, not the girl's birth. This cryptic warning became a burning coal of truth in Nomusa's heart, contradicting Makais's convenient narrative. Chapter 3 Whispers of the Past. Nomusa sat huddled beneath a tattered amkuko mat, shivering violently, but her thoughts were far from the cold. They were with her Gogo, who had been banished years ago for questioning the Sangoma's wisdom. Gogo was the last person to share the fire's light with Nomusa. She had always insisted that Makais held a terrible secret about the sacred flame. It was the time of the great drought, Gogo had recalled, her voice thin as dry grass, and Makais sought to use the fire, not honor it. He wanted a harvest of gold, not millet. Gogo's story suggested the sacred fire was extinguished during a forbidden personal ritual Makais performed for vanity and power, not because of a curse on an infant. Makais had made a public show of the fire dying accidentally, but Gogo claimed he deliberately used the last, weak embers in a desperate, selfish attempt to bring him fuyo, wealth. When his dark ritual failed, he needed a scapegoat, a child born under a bad sign. Nomusa finally realized that her survival and the village's survival depended on exposing this lie. Gogo had also vaguely described a strange, naturally occurring material, a stone that drinks the sun and spits fire, hidden high on the forbidden peak of Intoba Yomlilo. With a fierce resolve that warmed her more than her thin shawl, Nomusa knew her destiny was tied to the very mountain Makais had barred her from. The dawn found her slipping past the still sleeping village. Chapter 4 The Treacherous Ascent. The ascent of Intoba Yomlilo was a desperate trial. The mountain was truly forbidding, cloaked in mist and slick with frozen dew. Each handhold was a gamble against the vast, jagged drop below. Nomusa moved cautiously but quickly, her Isidwaba skirt snagging on the thorny amlaba bushes. Her fear of the mountain spirits was secondary to her dread of Makais's retribution if she failed, or worse, if she was caught here. She used every skill taught by her father, a hunter who had perished on these same slopes, to navigate the loose scree and invisible paths. The higher she climbed, the more the cold wind howled, a punishing voice that seemed to confirm Makais's warnings. After hours of painful climbing, she reached a high plateau hidden in the clouds. Here, the air was still, and the ground was marked by strange, blackened earth. This was the place where lightning was said to strike most frequently. Following a faint trail Gogo had described, Nomusa discovered a hollow in the rock, a small, collapsed shrine not built by Zulu hands, but perhaps by an ancient, forgotten people. Inside the ruined structure, shielded from the relentless wind, lay the debris of what was clearly a failed, reckless endeavor. It was not a place of worship, it was a scene of chaos. Her heart pounded as she realized the old stories might be true. She was close to discovering the scandalous truth that had plunged her people into darkness. Chapter 5, The Forgotten Ritual. Nomusa's hands trembled, not from cold, but from realization. Inside the shrine, she saw it, a small, broken ceramic pot, unlike any pottery in KwaMthombo, and next to it, a cluster of scorched bones that were not of any animal used in traditional sacrifices. The true scandal was laid bare. Scratched onto a flat stone in a rush, Nomusa recognized Makai's distinct, spidery mark, a signature he used only on his most secretive medicinal mixtures. The mark was positioned above a crudely drawn symbol representing boundless imfuyo, wealth. This was the evidence, a silent testament to the Sengoma's staggering duplicity. Makai hadn't tried to save the sacred fire, he had tried to corrupt it. He had brought the final, precious embers up the forbidden mountain and combined them with the exotic, volatile ingredients of a non-Zulu ritual he had learned from a foreign trader, a ritual meant to convert spiritual power into personal fortune. The attempt had backfired catastrophically, the chemical mixture igniting and consuming the last of the ancestral flame in a single, greedy flash, leaving behind only the evidence of his betrayal. Nomusa knew this proof alone would never convince the chief, who was too reliant on Makai's spiritual authority. She needed the fire itself, and she needed the forgotten tool Gogo had spoken of, which must be connected to this strange, volatile ritual. Chapter 6, The Black Rock. Scrabbling through the wreckage of Makai's abandoned shrine, Nomusa searched desperately for anything Gogo might have described. Her fingers scraped against the rough stone walls until she felt something cold, heavy, and strangely smooth tucked into a deep crevice. She pulled it out. It was a fragment of volcanic rock, about the size of a palm, shimmering darkly with an unnatural metallic sheen. It felt cool to the touch, yet when she rubbed it against the rough edge of the cave wall, it produced a faint, sharp smell of sulfur and dry thunder. This was it, the stone that drinks the sun and spits fire, from Gogo's whispered tale. Nomusa understood immediately. This wasn't a fuel, like wood, but a component. She realized the original sacred fire had likely been maintained for centuries not by constantly rubbing sticks, but by the ritualistic knowledge of how to use this catalyst, a knowledge that had died out save for Gogo's cryptic warnings. The fire, therefore, was not a gift of the ancestors, but a science that had become a religion. Clutching the black rock, she scanned the mossy ground. To complete the chemical reaction she instinctively knew was necessary, she needed the third element, a specific type of dry, silver-green moss that grew only in the mineral-rich soil near the mountain summit. She gathered a handful of the dried flora, recognizing the distinct way it withered without truly decaying. It was time to descend and force the truth upon KwaMthombo. Chapter 7, The Chase and the Reveal. As Nomusa began her descent, she saw movement in the valley far below. Makai, whose vigilant eyes rarely left in Toba Yomlilo, had spotted her trespass. The Sangoma knew that if she had found the shrine, his secret was vulnerable. Within moments, 3 of Chief Zwelabonzi's appointed guards were scrambling up the lower slopes, their traditional spears glinting dangerously. Nomusa had to run. She was quicker than the heavy-booted men, fueled by adrenaline and the heavy weight of the black rock in her satchel. She plunged down the easiest, most dangerous route, sliding down rocky inclines and leaping across streams, her heart roaring like the wind. She reached the village perimeter just as the guards closed in. They cornered her near the large, empty kraal where the dead fire lay. The commotion drew the entire village, including Chief Zwelabonzi and Makai, who stood smugly beside him. The witch has returned from the haunted place. Makai hissed, his voice full of faint triumph. She has surely consorted with the mountain's evil spirits. The chief, weary and cold, raised his hand for silence. Nomusa, you have defied my order. You have trespassed the forbidden ground. She didn't plead. She walked past the guards, past the chief, and stopped directly in front of the dead, cold hearth. This was the moment for the plot twist, the reversal of the curse. Chapter 8, The First Spark. Makai stepped forward, ready to pronounce a final, damning judgment, but Nomusa ignored him. She knelt by the blackened stones of the hearth, placing the silver-green moss carefully onto the dry ground. The chief watched in stunned silence, his people murmuring fearfully. Mackays began chanting a loud counterspell, attempting to drown out the scene. Nomusa took the heavy, black rock and, with a swift, deliberate movement, produced one more item, a forgotten, rusting piece of steel she had salvaged from a broken farming tool. This was the final component of the forgotten science. She took the small piece of steel and struck the shimmering black rock with a precise, glancing blow, the sound echoing sharply in the silent air. There was no laborious friction, no rubbing of wood on wood. Instead, a cascade of tiny, brilliant white sparks erupted from the strange stone, falling directly onto the dried moss. For a terrifying, suspended moment, nothing happened. Then, the sulphurous scent Nomusa had noticed on the mountain filled the air, and the silver-green moss instantly caught, not with a flicker, but with a sudden, beautiful, spitting flame. Nomusa had not just found a way to rub two sticks together, she had demonstrated a lost chemical art, striking the iron pyrite-like rock against steel to release the energy long trapped inside the mineral. The scandalous curse was broken, the Sengoma's law was exposed, and Nomusa had achieved her goal. She brought fire to the village.